Before Ohio was admitted into the Union, in the very early years of the newly organized Fairfield County, this is what the seat of justice looked like. Circuit-riding judges traveling the territory heard cases when and where they could. Inclement weather took proceedings into log schoolhouses, taverns, or churches. But in 1807, Lancaster became the location of one of the first brick courthouses in Ohio, situated in the intersection of Main and Broad Streets, the public square. And for the first time here, justice had both a permanent and a prominent home of its own. The two-story courthouse was condemned after the Civil War and torn down in 1867. This church on Chestnut Street served as a temporary site for legal proceedings for several years. But as early as 1858, the county commissioners already had plans for a future courthouse when they purchased an apple orchard along High Street on the crest of Main Hill. And so the story of the Fairfield County Courthouse as we know today begins with the commissioners selecting the highest point in the city, a spot which, along with St. Mary Catholic Church, comes to symbolically represent the values inherent in both church and state, in what is to become an iconic American community. In 1866, the state legislature in Columbus authorizes $100,000 for construction. Proposals were requested and bids let. Jacob Orman is officially appointed architect and superintendent. And as noted here in the Commissioner's Journal, the cutting of locally quarried sandstone begins on September 25, 1867. When the courthouse is completed and occupied in 1871, the total cost will be nearly $139,000, which will include a sandstone wall and cast iron fence to enclose the property. The structure becomes the center of justice for everyday citizens.
This courthouse was now like a branch Supreme Court of the United States where their grievances, their disputes could be settled, whether it be a United States constitutional issue or a state constitutional issue or a local ordinance for that matter. That now the disputes that people had would not be settled by a force of arms, but by the law. That the rule of law is inviolate in this country, and it always has been. And so that was significant for people. They could go along about their business of farming and manufacturing and whatever the case may be, rearing their families, and having education, without having a feeling that those rights of life, liberty, and property would be taken away from them just without the force of law. And they had that belief and that faith in our government at that time. And this building being built was a statement to them and all those people of Fairfield County that was an important issue for them, and they could rely on that. And the commissioners felt the same.
Nearly 150 years ago, the labors of stonecutters, carpenters, masons, and more blended together to create what they hoped would become a harbor of wisdom in the midst of conflict, where differing views could be expressed and debated, while the history of everyday transactions were recorded. Although no detailed design notes survive, the architect seems to have understood its purpose by virtue of its diversity of styles. It has been called Renaissance Revival, incorporating Romanesque features, flat-roofed, with a wide bracketed cornice and dentil mold. Ornamental sandstone window hoods were used throughout. The columns, too, are just as diverse, with examples of both the flourish of Corinthian and the organic influence of Egyptian capitals. The courthouse provides excellent examples of durable 19th century American woodworking and hardware in all its classic grandeur. And just as the artist signs his work, contractor Henry Ebner's signature countenance presides over the front entrance of the courthouse to this day. Through the years, the county commissioners brought about changes to better serve a growing population. Originally, the courthouse had both an east and west staircase. From 1929 through the mid-1940s, the east stairwell was overtaken by office expansion and subsequent renovations. Evidence of that can still be seen looking at the partially embedded columns in the east wall of the ground floor. Before electricity, office employees did their work by gas lamps, aided by natural sunlight that streamed in through massive windows. In fact, the courthouse was occupied before gas was discovered in Lancaster. So, as we look back, we've gone from candlelight and kerosene to energy-efficient LED lighting. In 1976, the county courts moved to a modern Hall of Justice next door, and 10 years later, the courthouse itself was restored to its 1871 beauty. We believe it's important to remember that any community with a vibrant connection to its past will always learn to value the opportunities in its future. So we encourage you to learn more about Fairfield County government and the multitude of services available to all of its citizens by visiting co.fairfield.oh.us. To schedule a courthouse tour for you or your organization, contact the County Commissioner's office, online or by phone.